An 18-year-old boy walked into a Garda station in Dublin. What he told them put 2 men away for life. It also destroyed his. New name, new identity, panic alarms, every single day, for the rest of his life. He was the youngest person ever to enter Ireland's Witness Protection Program, and the only person in that room who knew it was wrong. Welcome back to TrueCrime Page, where we dig beneath the surface of Britain's most dangerous underworld stories. The crimes built on greed, power, and secrets worth killing for. If you're new here, and you're drawn to unfiltered true crime stories that refuse to fade into silence, subscribe, turn on notifications, and join a community committed to uncovering the cases others would rather forget. Clondalkin, West Dublin, early 2000s. It's not a place that makes the news for good reasons. A working-class suburb on the edge of the city. Tight streets, tight communities, and a drug trade that had been bleeding through both for years. Cocaine, heroin, violence, and young men who got pulled in before they were old enough to understand what they were being pulled into. Joey O'Callaghan was one of them. He was 12 years old when it started, a kid from the area who needed a few extra pounds in his pocket. Someone offered him a job, a man named Brian Kenny. The job was simple: go out on the milk float, collect money from people along the route. That was it. Easy, legitimate, nothing to worry about. Except it wasn't legitimate. And there was everything to worry about. It took Joey a while to understand what he was actually doing. The money he was collecting, it wasn't for milk. The deliveries he was making alongside it, they weren't milk either. It was heroin. He was 12 years old, delivering heroin, door to door, in broad daylight, on a milk float. By the time he understood what was happening, really understood it, the trap had already closed. That's how grooming works. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with a warning. It arrives as a favor, a job, a bit of cash, someone taking an interest in you. And then one day you look around and realize you're in. And there is no clean way out. Year by year, the errands got bigger. The stakes got higher. Kenny kept Joey close, useful, controllable, complicit. By the time Joey was 18, he wasn't a kid on a milk float anymore. He was fully embedded, running errands for men who used extreme violence as casually as most people use a phone. He knew things he couldn't unknow. He'd done things he couldn't undo. And the men around him, they knew that too. That was the point. Then came April the 17th, 2004, a Saturday. And everything Joey O'Callaghan had been living inside came to a head. Joey was 12 when this started. At what point do you think he stopped having a real choice? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. April the 17th, 2004. That's the day we've been building toward. And Joey didn't find out what happened the way you did. He didn't read it in the news. He didn't hear it on the radio. He heard about it from the men who did it, in a safe house, that afternoon. They came back buzzing, loud, euphoric, untouchable. Joey looked at them, and then he heard it. He's after dying. The room erupted. Whooping, high fives, lines of cocaine laid out on a table like it was a celebration, because it was. Brian Kenny laughing, mimicking a man's final moments, moving his body the way the victim had moved, performing it, grinning through it. And then the words, "This is my playground now." Joey stood there, watching and taking it in. That is how he found out a man had been murdered. Now let's go back. A few hours earlier, Saturday, around 3 in the afternoon, a silver BMW was parked outside Cloverhill Prison in Clondalkin. 3 people inside. The driver, a man named Robbie O'Hanlon, had gone into the prison to drop off clothing for a friend. Nothing unusual about stopping outside a prison. In the passenger seat, Jonathan O'Reilly, 24 years old, from St. Mark's Gardens, Clondalkin, father of a 5-year-old boy named Kyle. a mid-level dealer in one of West Dublin's most violent drug gangs. He had just come out of prison himself, back dealing, back in the trade, back in the crosshairs, and without knowing it. The BMW had been parked less than 10 minutes. Then a motorbike appeared. High-powered, fast, 2 men, black helmets, moving with purpose. It pulled up alongside the car. The pillion passenger stepped off. 3 shots, through the window into the passenger seat, into Jonathan O'Reilly. Neck, chest, arm. The motorbike was gone before anyone could react. O'Reilly was rushed to hospital. At approximately 3:45, he was dead. Now, here is the part that makes this murder something different. Robbie O'Hanlon hadn't just stopped at Cloverhill by chance. He had called O'Reilly that morning. "Come out. We're going to Liffey Valley." He picked him up, drove him there, parked the car, passenger side facing the road, and then went inside. O'Hanlon had set him up, delivered him, parked him in position, and walked away. The men on the motorbike knew exactly where O'Reilly would be, exactly which seat he was in, exactly when to arrive. This wasn't opportunistic. This was surgical. And Robbie O'Hanlon? The friend who made the call, picked him up, pointed him at the road, was later shot dead himself, marked for death by the same world he'd served. Because in that world, a man who lures his friend into an ambush is a man nobody ever fully trusts again. If you're new here and you want cases told straight, subscribe, hit the bell, let's keep going. The room was still celebrating, and Joey was standing in the middle of it, watching men toast a murder like it was a birthday. Then Kenny turned to him. The mood shifted. Not angry, worse than angry, calm. "I've done it once. I'll do your family too." That was the message. You saw nothing. You heard nothing. And now you're going to help us clean it up. The orders came fast. The gun, gone. The leather clothing, gone. The cash, the heroin, the cocaine, all of it disappeared. Joey moved. Because when Brian Kenny tells you to move, you move. He buried cash in fields, hid the gun under grass at the side of a road, stuffed items into ditches, some of it stored inside Rubik's Cubes. Hidden in plain sight, piece by piece, he dismantled the evidence of what had happened that afternoon. And all the while, something was building inside him. Not courage, not yet. Something quieter than that. The image of Kenny laughing, mimicking a dead man. This is my playground now. Joey had seen things before. He'd been in this world long enough to know what men like Kenny were capable of. But this was different. This was joy. Genuine, unguarded joy. At the fact that a man was dead. And Joey couldn't unfeel it. He couldn't unknow what he knew. He couldn't unwatch what he'd watched. The fear was still there. Enormous. Real. Justified. He knew exactly what would happen. He'd seen it. He'd helped clean it up. But he went to the Garda anyway. That decision, what it took to make it, is something most people will never fully understand. He walked in, and he told them everything. The early morning raid on Mitchellstown Cottage came fast. Officers moved through the safe house, and Joey led them to it. All of it. 200,000 euros in cash. A similar value in drugs. The gun. Recovered. The evidence that should have disappeared was sitting exactly where Joey had put it. Because somewhere in the back of his mind, he hadn't buried it quite deep enough. Witness protection came next. A new name. A new life. Panic alarms in every room. Security measures that never fully let you forget. That somewhere out there, people want you dead. He was 18 years old. And that was the life he had chosen. The only life left available to him. We've been in this story for a while now. And you've heard Brian Kenny's name. Heard what he said. What he did. How he celebrated. Now, the full picture. Brian Kenny was from Kilshane Cross in Finglas, North Dublin. mid-30s at the time of the murder. Violent, calculating, ambitious in the way that makes dangerous men truly dangerous. He didn't just want to be part of the Clondalkin drug trade. He wanted to own it. Jonathan O'Reilly stood between him and that. So Jonathan O'Reilly had to go. That was the logic. Cold, simple, final. Thomas Hinchon was younger, mid-20s from Clondalkin itself. Kenny's man, the driver on the motorbike that afternoon. Not a passive figure, not just following orders. An active, willing participant in a planned killing, equally convicted, equally responsible. Over 40 detectives investigated the case. 4 people were arrested in the early stages. Firearms recovered. The net was closing. Then came the Central Criminal Court. June 2005. Joey. O'Callaghan took the stand. 2 years older than the boy who'd walked into that Garda station, but carrying every single day of those 2 years. He told the court what he saw, what he heard, what Kenny said, what Kenny did, the celebrations, the threats, the cleanup, all of it. The BMW driver testified too. Others corroborated the picture. Kenny and Hinchon denied everything. The jury deliberated. Long deliberations, hotel lock-ins, hard conversations behind closed doors. And then, majority verdict. Guilty. Both of them. The 7th of July, 2005. Mandatory life sentences. Mr. Justice Michael Pert looked at both men and said what needed to be said. This was, in his words, as cold, calculated, and premeditated a slaying of a young man as could be imagined. Appeals were filed. 2006 he rejected. The convictions held. And here is where I want to ask you something directly. Brian Kenny stood in a safe house on the afternoon he murdered Jonathan O'Reilly and performed the man's death for laughs, mimicked his final moments, called West Dublin his playground. Does a person like that deserve parole, ever? Let me know where you stand in the comments. 20 years. That's how long Frank and Dolores O'Reilly have been doing this. Turning up, opposing parole applications, sitting in rooms and telling strangers what it feels like to lose a son, year after year, hearing after hearing. For 2 decades, Jonathan was their child, and the men who took him have never, not once, shown anything that looked like genuine remorse. So the O'Reillys keep showing up, because someone has to. Then there's Kyle, Jonathan's son. 5 years old when his father was shot dead outside Cloverhill Prison. He has grown up without him. Birthdays, milestones. The ordinary things a father is supposed to be there for. All of it, without Jonathan. And now, Kyle has reached the same age his father was when he was killed. Think about that for a moment. A son, living inside the age his father never got past. In 2023, something shifted. The parole board introduced a new process under the 2019 Act. For the first time, victims and their families could address the board directly. Frank and Dolores were there. They spoke. And for the first time in 20 years, they felt actually heard, not processed, not managed, heard. It shouldn't have taken that long. Brian Kenny has had temporary releases, moves toward open prison conditions, each one opposed by the O'Reilly family, each one a fresh wound. Thomas Hinchon remains inside, still serving, still silent, and Joey O'Callaghan, the 18-year-old boy who walked into a Garda station and changed everything, is still living under protection. New name, controlled environment, security measures that never fully let you breathe. He spoke about it publicly. A book, a podcast, called The Witness. Over 2 million downloads. People all over the world listening to the voice of a man who has never been able to use his real one freely. He said something that has stayed with a lot of people. I'll fight to keep them in jail until I die. Not anger, not bravado, just a quiet absolute. Commitment from a man who knows exactly what those two are capable of. because he was there. And here is the question this case never fully answers. What does justice actually look like for Frank and Dolores, who have spent 20 years turning up to rooms and reliving the worst moment of their lives? For Kyle, who grew up inside the shape of an absence. For Joey, who made the right call at 18 and has been paying for it ever since. For a boy groomed at 12 on a milk float in Clondalkin. What does justice look like for him? There's no clean answer. There never is. Joey O'Callahan didn't choose that world. It chose him. When the moment came, he chose differently. That matters. It doesn't fix everything. It doesn't bring Jonathan back. It doesn't give Kyle his father. It doesn't give Joey his life back. But it matters. If this case stayed with you, the next one is already on your screen. Another story. Another truth that deserves to be told properly. Thank you for watching this all the way through. Until next time.